This is Postman, and this will be my second video of my track walkthroughs. This time we're taking a look at the track As Without, So Within. It was featured in a compilation with Assemblyline, which is a collective of producers always releasing in a compilation format, in a VA format. So mostly they have like a series they called Damaged Goods, which are compilations of several tracks with no really coherent theme, maybe some kind of aesthetic appeal to it. But in this particular compilation, which was called Exotic Goods, all tracks were based around a central theme, more like a songwriting theme. So we're stimulated to use weird time signatures, weird tempo modulations, but also experiment with tonality, so with chord progressions, or the use of non-Western standard tunings with TON files and so on. So the track As Without, So Within, the title was actually kind of inspired by MTG, so Magic the Gathering card. I bet you already know about the MTG TGC. So the card in question is a transforming card. So on one side you have Conduit of Storms, which transforms into Conduit of Emrakul, and the flavor text reads As Without, So Within. So the set in which it was featured, this was a set where Emrakul and Eldrazi being appeared. So long story short, the Eldrazi are weird, kind of almost godlike entities, which you can compare to Lovecraftian horror. So incomprehensible, weird, out of this world. So really like an alien feel to it, which was kind of my point I wanted to achieve with this track. There's also a saying which is kind of the opposite, so as within, so without, which would have been said by Hermes Trismegistus, which would be the so-called leader figure in Hermeticism. This saying actually refers to the body and spirit connection, so you have to have a good balance between the spiritual world and the physical world to find happiness, to find a meaningful life. But it could also refer that your thoughts not only are formed by your experiences brought to you by the external world, but that also your thoughts influence that external world. They influence how you perceive it, how you act with it. Okay, that's that. A little sidetrack. So here's the track. I work in Ableton Live, like for all my projects. The main feature about this track is that the tempo is constantly modulating, like you can see in this automation line. So it's going from 36 BPM ish to a maximum of 86. And because it's modulating, the track doesn't have a really consistent pulse, which gives it an even more textural feel. It's not that commonplace in electronic music, but if you think about it, genres like classical music or older rock and pop production weren't that steady too in BPM. So it gives it also that kind of organic feel. But because it's really exaggerated, it has an alien feel to it. Okay, let's take a look at the different buses. So here we got a sidechain bus, which only contains one track and one sample, 808 hat, which only serves as a trigger for the sidechain compression. It's not going anywhere except to the sends, so it doesn't get mixed into the mix. Then the drum bus actually has a frequency shifter on it, so in the later section of the track it's modularly frequency shifting all the elements by a certain amount. Kind of looks like an LFO. Again, add more texture, more variety to the sound. So like this. To this. So alongside with the tempo shifting, it kind of warbles the sound up and down. Some actually the drum sounds are being sent to the send track. Only a very little amount, because it's quite being heavily processed. Called it insane gain, where it is actually going through a reverb plugin by Valhalla, Valhalla Room, and then being gained up like hell, and then limited. Because of that, all the artifacts are actually pushed so you can actually hear them. Has to do with the RT60 value, which is the value when in normal circumstances, time-based effect like delay, chorus, maybe even flanging, reverb, when the sound is has decayed so much that it's dropped to 1000 of the original volume, so about minus 60 dB, which is where the term RT60 is coming from. Sidetrack, whatever. So let's take a look at the elements. The kick is a really kind of boomy kick. Let's take a listen. Yeah, so it's going through transient shaper, EQing R bass to beef up the bass and sub bass in it. It's actually occurring every bar because the tempo is modulating. It doesn't sound that consistent. Then the snares. The first snare is kind of washed reverby thing. Yeah, not that clear, but doesn't matter in this song. Then the second clap snare thing, it's a sample from the Alan Moore sample pack on Splice, but he actually released some of those samples free beforehand. It's processed by a frequency shifter, pushing the higher part of the spectrum even higher. Then it's going through an erosion, which is adding extra high frequencies, and then through an OTT to push all the frequencies even higher. Sounds like that. Really crunchy, not that snappy, just crunchy and gritty. And these intro drums, of course, have a place in the intro, but also later up in the track. They're all, I think I sampled them from my modeler, not sure, and then processed them heavily with bit reduction, saturation, distortion, amping, and so on, so that they sound really tortured, crispy. They're really not that clean. Then I have this loop group which contains all the other loops, mainly tops and so on. So what's going on here? Well, some of them unfiltered audio dent is adding some extra high end, some top end, so crunching them even more. Here, yeah, did that by yeah. So you have this control, which actually I think it pushes some frequencies higher, and so what does it do? Controls the amplitude and polarity of the positive component of the input. So yeah, it's kind of asymmetrical wave shaping, I guess. And then here, what's this doing? Ah yeah, this is a unfiltered audio spec ops. So here it's smearing the frequencies. Spec ops is like a spectral processing effect, which is really modular and full of really wacky features. Really should give it a try. And then I guess that's about it. Here's some fails. Again, probably being processed. No, not even. Then here, this little fill is going through a vocoder, and the carrier is just a noise signal, so it gives that like inorganic, weird, like lo-fi, noisy quality to it. Yeah, it's not uber present, but helps define it a bit more. Okay, the tonal elements. So the sidechain is actually triggering the sidechain compressor, which is the FabFilter C2, for the whole bus. Normally I would adjust the settings and levels of the side compression accordingly for each element, but here I just whacked it on the whole bus. I guess for this track, since it's very textural, it doesn't have to be really clean or precise, so I think that's why I made that choice. The bass, one of the main basses is made in Serum. It's actually a preset. Yeah, preset I tweaked, probably. Yeah, preset from the current value. Preset and sample pack on Fragment Audio. Really cool stuff from them. Have mixed feelings about preset packs. I think they're sometimes overpriced. But they do really work, and I like starting from a preset and then tweak it to my own liking, change up wavetables or something, or modulation. Just have them to start an idea and then work further from it. Maybe it's not your thing, but it works for me. So that's how this sounds. So like you can see, is going through several processing things, and these two plugins, so the Vitamin Stereo and the Shep's parallel particles. So what these two do is actually exciting the signal, actually adding frequency content. So of course you can do it with an EQ, but it kind of feels artificial. It's not that great. I think EQing is best done when it's done subtractive, so cutting frequencies, boosting not that much. But these work differently. They actually synthesize some of the frequencies, which gives it more or less an organic feel to it. So probably this sound was kind of lacking in certain frequencies, and I added them with those plugins. Yeah, difference is quite clear, but not that too in your face. I guess. Another thing I will see on a lot of my tracks is this thing. So with what I call width utility, so it's actually helping stereo imaging the things. The divider plugin from Infected Mushroom, Polyverse, then utility mostly to mono stuff or mono stuff in the bass frequencies, and then the isotope imager just to check if everything's okay and tweak it further. Okay, then the second bass is like a sluggish sample based bass, because I think it's it's warped in the repitch mode because the track is modeling in tempo. It's also going up and down in pitch. Gives you like groany kind of tone. Kind of sounds like farts, but I guess in a good way. Yeah, in a good way. So the synth section, the most prominent synth is the one I guess in the intro. Yep. So it really sounds tortured. It was also a preset, actually a bass preset, again from that current value pack, which I tweaked further. It goes through unfiltered audio spec ops, which is again freezing, smearing it. Actually, it also goes through the spectral compander, which kind of lacks at functions like a compressor, but it works spectrally. It has that OTT quality to it, but a bit more refined. Sounds different, but I like it. Really amps it up in a particular way. And then a lot of other plugins. Okay, that's that. Those two tracks are the more melodic parts of the song. For this, yeah, well, melodic is a kind of relative in this track. It's a sample, as you can see, being acute, going through a reverb and so on. Using this Suits plugin, yeah, to because some of the high frequencies, definitely around 6K, were a bit too harsh, so this plugin is great to dull in that. This track is actually the same as the other one. It's just pitched an octave higher, which gives the whole thing more variety. This stab is going through a chorus, and then PX rooms, so MS full caps, with a preset which is called Endless Shimmer. I guess it's like an endless, like a reverb-ish thing. It really sounds eerie. The decay is like really long, which is kind of cool and fits the track. An important thing to mention maybe, so the main synth in the intro and this what I called horn sections, which are all serum presets, things that sound like horns, kinda. All have different TON files, so they are tuned differently, not equal temperament, which would be these standard tunings in most synths, but other tunings, I have no idea which ones, but because of it they kind of sound dissonant when you put them together, which adds to the alien quality of the song. So here in the horns section, yeah, this kind of brassy synths you would find in Alien soundtracks and soundtracks of Blade Runner and so on. Yeah, more choral-like sound. Yeah, like the Bram sound. You can find in Hans Zimmer soundtracks. This one is interesting. So it's basically the same MIDI as the other horn tracks, or actually a section of it the same. Then it's going through chord MIDI device, an arpeggiator MIDI device, and then through the scale MIDI device. This configuration makes it that there are a lot of extra notes added, which adds some randomness. The arpeggiator is arpeggiating all that information, and then the scales device is making sure it's all locked into the same kind of key, which is G minor apparently. Okay, and then for the effects, yeah, okay. Well, most of it are transitions with several different plugins on it. They don't all have to be FX samples per se, but if you process them in the right way, well, you end up with FX-ish like sounds. So here I got this group, which is actually kind of noise layers on top. Yeah, I think there's an auto filter on this. Yep, auto filter on the. Yeah, actually what these tracks do is adding high-end frequency to the or even more lower frequencies to the mix, so it helps glue it all together, fill the frequency spectrum and gluing all the stuff together, since all the other elements are kind of sparse and sporadic and textural. It's adding that nice kind of polish coating over it, or that kind of alien-ish polish over it. So I think that's it. Yeah, okay, hope you liked it. Leave a like if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you.